hearts grew quite scared of our strength and defiance, and Thor said, I'm gonna kill them all with my hammer, like I killed the giants. But Zeus said, no, you better let me use my lightning like scissors, like I cut the legs off the whales, dinosaurs and the lizards. And then he grabbed up some bullets, he let out a laugh, said I'll split them right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another showing of the Atheist Experience. I'm Ashley Perry, your host, and with me today is Karen Glasser, our co-host, one of our rotating co-hosts right now. It is March 14th, and we are live today. We are sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly Sunday morning meetings, which are right now currently in a little bit of flux as to where they are. We went to Crescent City Beignets this morning.
It's the on-the-road version. The on-the-road version of the weekly brunch.
Yes, our traveling roadshow. So yeah, we were down there today. If we're going to be there or somewhere else next week, we haven't really decided yet. We'll kind of look into that. But if you check our website, www.atheist-community.org, we will have an announcement and post it on there as soon as we know where it's going to be. And like I say, that's every Sunday morning, usually around 10, 11 o'clock, something like that, depending on when the place opens and such. Apart from that, every Monday night, we have Godless Gamers at the house of Russell Glasser, and basically we get together 7 o'clock at night, play board games, card games, role-playing games, whatever happened to catch our fancy for the night. That's every Monday night, and if you go to, again, the website, contact the webmaster. He is the one that hosts it. He can tell you a little more information about that one. Also on Tuesday, a non-ACA related event, but something that's being set up. There's a website out there, www.meetup.com. It's basically just, it kind of arranges things for people. They have one, atheists.meetup.com, and they're having a meeting this coming Tuesday night. It's at Triumph Cafe on Spicewood Springs. That I think starts at 7 o'clock. Also, that's on Tuesday nights. On Wednesday nights, we're filling up our week this time. Karen Glasser is hosting a movie night at her place. We are showing Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar,
musical. At 7 or 7:30, something like that?
7.
Okay, about...
Technically.
Yeah, show up at 7. We're starting a little later. Again, if you go to our site, we have a link to email lists that we're on, and you can get some information there on that as soon as we post it. That's Wednesday. Thursday night, happy hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex. It's on the southbound feeder of I-35, just south of 183. That starts around 7:30. People kind of trickle in and out all night, so just look for a table, and that'll be us. It's usually about a half dozen or so of us, maybe 10, something like that. It's a good meetup. Like I say, it starts around 7:30, goes until whenever they kind of close or people take off. So it's a good time, though. Also, on Saturday this week, we are having a potluck. It's an ACA potluck event, and again, join our list, get on the website, and they'll have information there on that. That's held the third Saturday of every month. Next week, actually, I'm wrong. Next week, we have our meetings every Sunday morning. The third Sunday of each month, we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center. I think we're in the Mayor Room now, I want to say. But we're basically in the big room on the first floor of the Austin History Center. That starts at 12:30. Alan, oh my God.
Campbell,
thank you. Is our lecturer this month. I don't have the topic in front of me, unfortunately, but he has presented it to other groups at other times, so it should be fairly interesting. Again, that's the Austin History Center this coming Saturday, and that starts at 12:30. Also, every other Saturday, we have the Nonprofits, the Internet Audio Show. That's hosted at atheistnetwork.com, and they just had a show yesterday, and which was the 13th. I believe they talked a little bit about the movie The Passion of the Christ, and I think they had a couple other things on there. I didn't get a chance to actually listen to it yet, but it should be on the website fairly soon if it's not already. That's a live MP3 stream, and that's every other Sunday from 2:30.
Every other Saturday.
Every other Saturday from 2:30 to 4?
2 to 3:30.
2:30. Okay.
Except the next one is scheduled to be in 2 weeks from now, but 2 weeks from now on Saturday we're going to be taking an atheist group to the Renaissance Festival, so we
Okay.
may be canceling that show.
Okay, so they may be running a tape that day. We'll have to find out. Okay, I believe that is it for the, one more. University Atheists and Agnostics. They're a registered UT student group, and they have their meetings every Thursday, as far as I know. They have a website, uanda.com, go ahead and look them up. They have a schedule on the website of when and where the meetings are, but like I say, from what I remember, it's every Thursday, and look on the website for the placement. That's been going for, I think, about 2 years now, and it's going fairly strong. So, all right, I believe that is everything for announcements, as if we didn't have enough. So I will quit yammering for a little while, and we will get over to Karen Glasser, our co-host, and talk about what we're talking about today.
Hi.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Quite well.
Good. Well, I'm really excited to be on the show. As you know, Martin Wagner, our regular host of the show, has
Passed on.
Retired. So Ashley's been promoted to host, and we've begun a new rotating co-host series. Yep. And I'm very proud to be the first official female co-host of the TV show in 7 years.
Yes.
So to honor that, I would like to attempt to spend the show today talking about women and atheism a little bit. I'm mostly just babbling off at the mouth today because, you know, this is my expertise because I am a woman atheist. I was raised an atheist. And I don't necessarily, I have a little bit in the way of statistics, and I have one news article I'd kind of like to just present just because it was interesting.
Okay.
The news article I'll start with was from Tuesday, March 9th. It says, study examines STD rates of teen virgins. Isn't that interesting that teenage virgins can get STDs?
Yes, it sounds almost like one of those lateral thinking puzzles. Exactly what kind of sexually transmitted disease can somebody get if they don't have sex?
Right. Okay, so it's in response to these programs these sexual education programs where you pledge to remain a virgin until you're married. It says teens who pledge to remain virgins until they're married have the same rate of sexually transmitted diseases as those who don't pledge abstinence, according to the study that examined the sex lives of 12,000 adolescents. Those who make a public pledge to abstain until marriage, delay sex, have fewer sex partners, and get married earlier, according to the data gathered from adolescents ages 12 to 18 and were questioned again 6 years later. Both groups had similar STD rates. Okay. So people who promise to stay virgins until marriage
apparently are not.
Well, they get married younger, more often than not. They get married at the age of 19 so that they don't have to keep waiting.
Yes, hormones tell them time to get married.
But when they do start becoming sexually active, they don't know anything about protecting themselves.
Safe sex.
Because all they know is abstinence, and when they're no longer abstinent, they don't know anything else. It says it's difficult to simultaneously prepare for sex and say that you're not going to have sex, is what this program says.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So while they may not be having as much sex, the sex that they are having is not nearly as safe. So.
Right. So.
But yeah, the failure rate of that is surprising. Because I think at the end of the article, what was the it was the last little factoid.
59. The statistics.
90. Yeah.
59% of males who didn't pledge abstinence used a condom during sex. Only 40% of male pledgers used a condom. 28% of female non-pledgers were tested for STDs in the previous year, compared to 14% of female pledgers. 99% of non-pledgers and 88% of pledgers have sex before marriage.
So 88% of the abstinence group didn't stick with it. Within 6 years, I think this time frame was?
Uh-huh.
It was over a 6-year time frame. Okay. So, and what age group was this again? From, did they say?
12 to 18.
From 12 to 18. Okay. All right. So chances are they're not all getting married by 18.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I mean, the article may state that they are getting married.
A lot of them do.
By 18?
I would think so. Well, maybe not a lot of them.
18. That's pretty
Some of
young.
them
That
do.
would be frighteningly young to get married. So.
I've seen it done.
Yeah. And I'd wonder what the divorce rates would be of people who got married at 18. And
Well,
less.
that's a different conversation that we were having sometime last week. I don't remember if it was on the TV show or the radio show or just at game night. Probably it was at game night. But, you know, the difference between, everybody says if you sleep with your partner before you get married or if you live with your partner before you get married, the statistics show that you're going to get divorced sooner or you're going to be more likely to get divorced. But I think that's a very, very slanted statistic because the reason people don't get divorced is the same reason that they don't sleep with someone or live with someone before they get married, and that's because the religious doctrine says it's not allowed.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Right. So
I would be interested because I have heard that general statistic that they're more likely. I don't know anything specific on it.
no specific numbers.
But yeah, it would be kind of nice to know how that more was drawn.
If anybody wants to look that up and call us, you're welcome to call into the show and give us that statistic.
Because I would just be kind of surprised if that were a truly, unslanted, not strange number.
Not strange.
Just from a, a specific group of people or something like that. I don't know, just my personal feelings, but who knows. So.
Oh, I didn't bring my other sheet with me. It's in my bag over there. But meanwhile, I have a couple of statistics just on the difference between. There's a common perception. Thank you. There's a common perception that there are fewer atheist women than atheist men. I mean, you can see it in a lot of places. You can, if you come to our group, there are very few active women. Yeah. There are very few single active women. So if you're a single active woman and you're looking for an atheist guide, you won't have a problem finding one here.
Although surprisingly enough, most of the women in the group are fairly active.
Yes.
As in, it's not just like we have a lot of women showing up who just come and, that's kind of the end of it. They're typically going to be fairly active and, they're into the group. They do a lot of stuff with it, so.
We are. Maybe you have to be activist to join this group. I don't know, but
perhaps.
It's just a good social outlet.
Yeah.
But so, I have a study here from the Gallup polls from 2002. It was a study of 1,000 American adults. 69% of women said that the religion was a very important part of their lives, compared to 53% of men, and 48% of women attended worship in the last week, compared to only 37% of men.
Wow, 48% of women. That's
Apparently,
that's a lot higher than I would have expected.
So, I mean, according to these statistics here, it looks like, religion is much more a woman's thing than non-religion, and therefore there would be fewer atheist women. I was having this discussion last night over coffee that one of the possible reasons for that, and this is a hot issue, but I'm allowed to say it because I'm a woman. One of the possible reasons for that is because men tend to be more thinkers. And women tend to be more feelers. And therefore, women find it easier to identify with religion, whereas men might find it easier to rationalize religion out.
Break away.
And I'm going to, I'm going to have to say that it's, I don't know if it's biological or cultural, but I'd be willing to guess that that's still mostly cultural. That women are more, emotionally driven, and men are more rationally driven.
Yeah, yeah. Plus the social aspect of it, of just, not so much of the religion itself, but just of getting up, going to church every week, meeting with, a Bible study group, whatever. Just that social aspect of it, maybe something that draws more women to it than men.
Right,
so,
and so,
men are happy with beer and football, so.
People often call into the show. They don't understand why we would organize ourselves based on having a non-belief. Yeah. But that's why, because we don't necessarily go to church and get that social outlet from there. So we get together with all the other non-church goers so that we can have our social outlet.
This is our version of it. Yeah. So we go down and have beignets and drink coffee all morning.
Yeah. So. Play board games and
Exactly. Yeah, we're actually much more social than most of the church groups, considering this week we have something every single day but Friday. So we can't escape each other.
No, we're not a cult.
We don't have a compound.
We will not brainwash you. Not actively, anyway.
At least.
Anyway, so when I was talking about going on this show, and I mentioned that I'd kind of like, some of you may have seen me on the show before. I haven't been very active lately, but when I first moved to Austin about a year and a half ago, I went on the show several times. I talked about being a Jewish atheist, being a gerontological social worker, and how that might relate to atheist issues, and being a vegetarian and how that might relate to atheist issues. So I was like, okay, what's my other expertise that I haven't talked about? I'd like to talk about being a woman atheist. Yeah. And I started getting a lot of feedback about what people wanted to hear. People wanted to hear about the issue of raising children, which I do not have any children, so I tried to invite some guests onto the show with me that have children and raise children within atheism, but that'll have to hold off for another week. I can tell you my thoughts on it, but like I said, I don't have any children. Women's rights issues, you know, right to be in control of your own body, stuff like that. So mostly don't necessarily have that much to say right off the bat, but I'd like to invite callers to call in and ask me any questions you want. And
okay. And we will be putting the phone number up pretty soon, 477-2288. And you can give us a call, and we can put you on the air and go ahead and take some calls in a few minutes, so, as soon as we get them lined up. But okay, yeah, did you have any specific thoughts on that? Because I know that we had tried to have one or two of our guests on, of like, say, who either have kids or something like that, and like, say, it just didn't work out this week. Maybe doing something in the future, we don't know about that.
We've done that in the past. We've had Ginny and Caitlin, who is her 11-year-old daughter, come on the show and talk
that was
together.
A while ago.
And that was a really good show. I'd like to do some more of that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun. And of course, we've been bantering around the idea of kicking all the men off the show and having an all-women show.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did look into, just for my own curiosity, and this is a very slanted, excuse me while I go off camera for a moment, but this is a very slanted statistic. Just out of curiosity, you know, Match.com is like the big dating website that there is. And so out of curiosity, I went on and I just looked up some numbers of how many men versus women atheists you can find online.
Yeah.
And
you did an actual search for atheist.
I did an actual search for atheist, like how many people identify themselves with atheist. I was going to go further and do atheist or agnostic, or people who identify themselves as spiritual but not religious, but this was mostly just atheist.
Okay.
And women looking for men, oh, I think I wrote this down wrong, but it was, I mean, men who are looking for women who identify themselves as atheists, between the ages of 18 and 65, there were about 500 of them. And between the ages of 21 to 35, so I did like all the people that would sign on to Match.com. I mean, not all of them. But I don't know how long the age range is, but 18 to 65 was about 500, as compared to women, which was about 241. So it was about half the number. 21 to 35 was about 344 for men, and 93 for women. Significantly lower.
It would be kind of interesting to see how many men and women they have on the site total to get a more percentage.
Yeah.
Because typically on these sites they're going to have a lot more men than women.
Yeah, and that's how this little statistic that I came up with is, it's not a statistic, but these numbers are very slanted because in general I know for a fact that a lot more men sign on to Match.com than women.
Yeah.
But I also, just out of curiosity, looked for men looking for men, you know. Okay. Between the ages of 18 and 65 was 37, and 21 to 35 was 18. Okay. Women looking for women was, between the ages of 18 and 65 was only 21, whereas 21 to 35 was only 15. So they were pretty close in terms of those ones. But
and was that atheist or just?
it was just atheist.
Okay, okay, all right.
So it's not a very reliable statistic.
Of course, it's only the Match.com sampling in Austin. So
if you're wanting to go on to Match.com, now you know.
Now you know exactly the pool that you're drawing from.
If you want to date atheists in Austin,
there are about 500 atheist single men on the website.
And you don't want to come to our group to do it. They're out there.
Yes, there are. All right. Do we have callers lined up? Do we have any names lined up? Apparently, we don't have any names lined up just yet, so we will get to that soon.
Lines are full, but nobody's there.
Yeah, I actually did a little bit looking on the Match.com. The spiritual but religious is a very, very, very open category.
Very, very open.
It seems like that would be something where it's everything from people who could be atheists, but don't want to put the A word of atheist or agnostic on there, all the way to the people who are studying, psychic powers and believe in, the tantric, yoga techniques and just, all these other kind of strange.
I would be willing to guess that the men who identify themselves as spiritual but not religious,
don't like the inflammatory.
Frequently, probably don't want to call themselves an atheist because they think they'll scare women away.
Exactly, exactly. The scary A word. So, that's definitely part of it because when you're trying to attract a date, the last thing you want to do is say, "Hey, I'm an atheist." May not attract quite as many people as you would hope. So, we'll have to see about that. But okay, we have got Anne. How you doing?
Fine, and you?
Quite well.
I was amused by one of your comments earlier, and that's the reason I'm calling. Many, many years ago, when my children were all grown, but when they were very young, I have a friend who was a professed atheist, it still is, and they had a young child, he was maybe 3 years old, and he was playing with a couple of other children in the neighborhood, the rabbi's son and a couple of other people, and the children were asking each other which religion they were. And my friends, when it came around to my friend's son, he was sort of at 3 or 4. They're not really sure. And he was saying, everyone was saying which religion. And he said, "I'm an American." And this young man is now in his 30s, has a family of his own, and is very, very happy, well-adjusted, growing up in an atheist household. So I just thought that maybe Karen would be interested in that, particularly because you were talking about children and how children can be raised in an atheist household.
Thank you.
Interesting to be considered an American.
Right.
Instead of, categorizing yourself as religious,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So it was an I remembered that story so often.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything else for us?
Well, let's see. Last week, or a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about the Passion of Christ. I don't know if you're still talking about that or not today.
Sure.
We could certainly bring it up.
I was just watching the old interview that Bill Moyer did with Joseph Campbell.
Okay.
And it's on PBS because they're having a fundraiser now.
Okay.
But one particular episode, and I think it was going back to the ancient mythologies of the world.
Yeah.
And talking about the resurrection mythologies of people.
Yes.
Of spirits of people when they looked at animals and ate animals.
Okay.
And how they revered the animal.
Yes.
And so consequently, that whole mythology is still the mythology of the Passion.
Yeah. Actually, it's really interesting. I did a little bit of reading there's an ancient religion called Mithraism, I believe it is. Mithraism, something like that. And basically, that is one where their deity created the universe.
Right.
He sent his son down to Earth,
right,
who was born on December 25th, who was, he was martyred for his religion.
Right.
After 3 days, he rose again.
Right.
And basically, it's just the parallels are just, it's obvious that you just change out one or two names and you've got a new story.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's really interesting to see some of the ancient religions and again, just see how many holidays are also based on, you know, some kind of pagan thing. Easter,
Right.
Is based on what? I think it's Esther, or something like that, and it's the old, you know.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of close together.
Okay, are they not? Well, I mean, they may not be the same date or anything like that, but.
Yeah, well, one's in
Well,
like March,
Passover
the
and
other's
Easter
in
you're
April.
talking about?
Oh, okay. What is that? I'm sorry?
Are you talking about Passover and Easter?
No, no. Again, one of the old festivals, one of the old pagan
Passover and
festivals.
Easter are the two that are like right next to each other, but
Right.
Purim, which is the Feast of Esther,
Right.
is about a month before that. Just
okay.
passed last weekend.
Okay. Well, I might be thinking of a different one, actually. Again, it's one of the older pagan religions, but again, they've got all these festivals pretty much around the same time.
Right, and the same with Isis and the old Egyptian mythology and
Exactly.
Isis and how the iconography of the Madonna was taken directly from Isis.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of these religions, again, the holidays are based around things that, you know, even going back to, you know, astronomy. Again, December 25th, 21st or thereabouts is the solstice.
Right. Winter
And so,
solstice.
exactly, and so it's just at a time where, you know, the seasons are, you know, days are getting longer at that point.
And it makes
so it's kind of an
sense.
important thing if you're a farming society
Sure, and
2,000 years ago.
even before farming societies, when you're out there in the middle of nowhere looking up at the stars,
Yeah.
and you start to think about yourself, the human person, in conjunction with the rest of what's going on.
Exactly, exactly. Start noticing patterns and such.
Right.
So,
Well, you
yeah.
know, it's really interesting. I just yesterday, I have this book, which is my dad's favorite book, called Jews, God, and History. I have it with me, actually. And yesterday I picked it up again and started reading it some more. And they have a section where they talk about, the chapter is called Moses, Jesus, and Caesar.
Okay.
Moses,
And
what?
Moses, Jesus, and Caesar. And they talk about, it's a very good book. It makes speculations. It takes a historical timeline and a biblical timeline and various different other timelines and kind of puts them all together and talks about how they could have paralleled each other. So there's this one section where it says, during the time that Jesus came about, the Roman Empire was becoming very, very bad, and there was a lot of tyranny going on all the time, and all the different religious sects were starting to preach that there was going to be some kind of savior that would show up. There was going to be some kind of Messiah that would come up somewhere, and then there was this guy named Jesus who started proselytizing, and everybody just kind of leached onto it.
Well, and then there was
actually, a small-
Zoroastrianism earlier than that, and then there was Buddha afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost my train of
What
thought.
was
There
the
was
name
a
of the
reason I
book
brought
that
that
you
up. It was called Jews, God, and History. Here, let me...
Jews, God, and History, okay.
It's a really good, it's a very interesting book. I mean, I can't tell you necessarily that it's, if you guys want to look at this, but...
Is there an author?
Yep.
Max
Max Dumont.
Okay.
It's a very good book. I mean, I'm sure it's largely speculation. It doesn't seem terribly slanted to me, except that, you know, it's just, here's how these stories in the Bible could have had some truth to them, or here's where they might have come from.
Yeah.
You know, it talks about different things like when Jesus was captured, everybody blames it on the Jews, but if you look at how the Jewish courts, the like highest Jewish courts worked, a lot of the things they attributed to it just wouldn't have been something they would have done, like sneak in the middle of the night, find some witnesses deviously, and then judge him and find him guilty and kill him all within the span of 12 hours in the middle of the night. That just wouldn't have happened. So what might have been likely to happen would have been that the highest Jewish court would have secretly arrested him as a form of protecting him.
Yeah.
Trying to keep him hidden, but he was discovered, and then...
Yeah.
Of course, even if it is historically, one would never know the real story because it wasn't the Christian version of it wasn't written until years later.
Exactly.
About 50 years later, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And we all know how history rewrites itself.
Exactly, especially over the course of 50 years to, you know, a couple of hundred years.
Right. Just think of
things
how
went down.
we have rewritten just American history over the centuries and over the years.
Yeah. And with modern technology, we can rewrite it in an hour or two. So.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for calling.
Bye.
Bye. All right, let's see. We have got Cosmo. How can we help you?
Well, I was just going through the TV and I saw the Atheist Experience there.
Yep.
So I was just wondering if y'all could define to me exactly what atheist does mean.
Okay, I'll start and you can finish. Atheism is pure and simple the lack of a belief in a God. That's
So
it,
you don't
basically.
believe in any God whatsoever?
As a general line, yes. It kind of depends on the definition if you really want to start getting picky about it. Well, if a South Sea Islander points at their totem pole and says, "That's my God," I'm a theist. It exists. I can go up and rap on a hunk of wood. Now, I may not agree that it has magical properties and can control the weather and, you know, grow corn for them, but as to the existence of the God, sure.
So you do, but you don't believe in anything you can't really touch, feel, or taste, or smell.
In terms of the general definitions that's used as God, no belief in them. There's simply no evidence out there to support that idea.
So if that totem pole, you could touch it or taste it or feel it, then that's a God that you would believe.
If they want to call that a God,
Yeah,
yeah. But again, that's really pushing the line.
that's a tricky line that I think a lot of people try and cross when they're trying to convince atheists that there is a God. That, see, you know, that thing over there, I call that God. Don't you believe in that? Because it's right there. I'm like, well, people do that. The most common example is, you know,
Nature.
God is in everything. Look at that tree over there. That is God. I'm like, okay, sure, I see that tree right there, but, you know, I kind of think it's a tree.
God is a heavily loaded word, basically, that carries a lot of connotations with it. If you want to say that God is in everything, and God is in the water and the trees, well, we have a word for that. It's called nature. And that is something where it doesn't carry some mystical property that, you know, God, you know, made the world and He loves you and everything like that. Again, God is
Then you must believe that everything happened by accident.
As much as H2O is accident, perhaps.
So H2O, hydrogen formed with oxygen, came together just totally by random chance.
Yeah.
There's chemical processes, there are physics, there are quantum mechanics, everything that's involved. It is a natural process.
And our being humans is just accidentally it just happened?
Yes.
It's the course of the world, it's how things turned out.
Okay.
If you want to call that an accident, that's a fairly strange term for it, but...
Well, I mean, because there's no rhyme or reason for it.
Yeah, when the universe was created, there was no deity or special plan to say in, you know, 13 billion years or however long you think the universe is, there's going to be these people walking around and they're going to look like this and they're going to do that kind of thing. Didn't happen like that.
It just happened, according to y'all, right?
Essentially, yes.
Okay,
Again, natural
that's
processes,
just what I was wondering.
Natural processes determine the course of the universe.
I was just wondering if that's what y'all believed, it just sort of happened.
Yeah. There's no higher power that's directing anything.
All right. Well, have a good day.
Okay. Thanks for calling. All right.
I'm having microphone issues.
Okay. We hope everyone can hear her.
Can everybody hear me? If you can, honk.
Okay. We are going to go to... This should be fun.
No,
Karen, how you doing?
I'm afraid.
Hi, am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I have two questions. One is very much related to the last caller. And this is my first time watching this show, so I apologize if these questions have been asked before. But one is, I think I believe a lot like you do, and I clearly feel a sense of being judged and not being in the mainstream and what you believe is wrong from people that do believe in religion, even religions that tout acceptance and love of others. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and why you think that exists, if it's fear or...
just the factor of acceptance?
The factor of lack of acceptance and lack of willingness to try to understand. And then my second question, and then I just wanted to hang up and listen, is I feel like there was a correlation between atheism and other things that, in my view, require thinking and awareness of our role and the impact we have on the world. I think there's probably a correlation between atheism, vegetarianism, people being ecologically minded, positions on capital punishment, things like that. So I'm interested in if you think there's a correlation there, and if so, why.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, going back to the understanding and tolerance thing, religion definitely has the idea that they have this view of themselves that we have the right ideas. We know how the world works. We have the answers to life, death, and, you know, everything else in between. And ours is the right answer. They don't have much wiggle room outside of that in terms of being accepted. It's kind of a closed network, in a sense. They've got the right ideas. This is how it works. If you don't understand, if you don't like that, if you don't agree with it, then you can go elsewhere. And since religion and Christianity in this country is definitely the predominant religion, if you're not part of that, you're at least questioned or looked at oddly, even if the other person is not religious. They can still kind of look at you and just kind of, you know, it's an eyebrow raiser, if nothing else, which is always kind of an interesting thing. And again, every religion or non-religion kind of has that to a certain extent.
I get the impression that you know, most religions believe they are right. They, you know, have all the right ideas, and a lot of them also try and preach you should love your enemy as your friend. You should treat other people with respect, you know, the golden rule. But I get the impression that when you put those two together, it's sort of like you should treat everybody like they're good people because you are superior to them and you need to set a good example.
Show kindness to the lower people.
To the lower people, yeah. Show kindness, not show kindness because everybody's equal, but show kindness because
you have power over them.
Yeah, right.
You have a form of power.
I don't agree with that, but and that's, I mean, it's hard to practice. I mean, when you look at it that way, it's hard to practice if you think you're superior to everybody else and still, you know, treat them as equals.
Yeah.
If you think you're superior to everyone else and still not judge them. I mean, it's kind of an inbred catch-22.
Yeah.
You know, it's in there automatically.
It's unfortunately a bit of how we work. So. As for the next part, correlation between atheism and vegetarianism, liberal side politics type thing.
Don't get me started.
We have had more than one discussion on this, apparently.
It lasted for a long time, and I could recap real quickly.
Okay.
I mean, in my opinion, I'm not entirely sure I understand the question.
Basically, atheists typically tend to be more, or there's a highest percentage of atheists, I assume, who would be vegetarian.
Okay.
Who would be liberal in terms of their politics.
For me, okay, I'm a vegan. Hi, my name is Karen. I'm a vegan.
Hi, Karen.
And it's largely because I'm an atheist. We tried to cover this in one show, but it sort of went all wrong. The reason I'm a vegan is because I don't believe in God. I don't believe that there is a next life, that there is a heaven, that humans have souls, but animals don't have souls, so it's okay. All that kind of stuff. I think that every life is sacred, to quote Monty Python. I believe that every life is precious, just equally as precious as every other life. A human is as precious as a cow. Cows have the ability to experience fear, to experience hope, to, you know, various human qualities that people don't associate with animals. They have the ability to experience fear, and therefore, I mean, I don't believe that if you kill that animal, it's okay because they don't have a soul. I don't believe if you kill that animal, it's okay because they're going on to heaven. And I don't believe that God put animals here for us to eat them. I hate it when people say that to me. So for me, I mean, my being a vegetarian is directly correlated with my being an atheist.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
All right. As for getting out of vegetarianism, though, and just atheists typically, on average, tend to be more liberal in their politics. Typically, it's going to be mostly liberal, left-wing, and then the other part of it's going to be libertarian. There's a couple Republicans, stuff like that, but usually not too many. The Republican Party has a lot of religious ties to it, and that usually scares them off to a certain extent. They are out there, there's just not quite as many of them. As to why that is, I think it's mostly just because the parties, the Republican Party has a lot of religious ties to it. And again, that's kind of a scary thing.
An article on that.
Okay. We have news.
We don't have to cover that. But I also think that a large part of it is that in religion it's easy to sit back and say, I mean, it's easier for an atheist to want to be an activist, because in religion you can sit back and say, God will provide. If I see something wrong with the world, I go home and I pray. Whereas if you're an atheist, if you go home and pray, nothing's going to happen. Yeah. If you're an atheist, you believe that if there's something wrong with the world, you have to go and change it, because there is no invisible creature in the sky that's going to change it for you.
Yeah. We're all running under our own steam.
If you want,
so.
Yeah.
So if we don't do it, nobody will. All right, we are going to go with Pat. How you doing?
Oh, fine. I'm just calling in because you'd mentioned earlier about talking about women and atheism and raising families and children.
Okay.
And I just want to call in. I raised two daughters as atheists.
Okay.
And they're now around 25, 29.
Okay.
And they came out fine. They've never been into dope. They've never gotten pregnant. They're two independent young ladies, self-sufficient in every way.
Okay.
And very happy.
Go you.
And I don't have any... the advice I have for people is raise your kids atheists, and you get to skip all the problems we have seen. A lot of our Bible-thumping relatives have with all the problems they had. We didn't have it. And a lot of it was education. We were able to openly talk to our children, and we didn't try to hide things from them. We laid everything out. My wife was very good about talking about sex to them all the time, and I think education was the key for them.
Okay. How much did you extend that into other areas? As in, I know most of the families I know of, they also didn't teach, or I don't want to say teach, but they didn't practice the holidays as much in terms of, Santa's coming tonight, and it's not until you're 10 years old that you tell them, well, sorry, Santa's not real. Again, some of the atheist families I've known, it's known all along that Santa is not real. He's just one of the holiday fun things to do.
Well, when they were younger, to answer that question, we did let them have Christmas and Santa Claus and this sort of thing.
Okay.
But as soon as they were old enough and they asked a question, we discussed it, we explained to them about what Christmas was all about, and still let them enjoy Christmas and have their thing, just because it's more convenient.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah.
And even now, we celebrate solstice now. We don't celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, yeah.
And but we get a lot of criticism from some of our relatives about that. You got to have it on the 25th. Christ was born on the 25th, that sort of thing. But so now, as adults, it's much easier to deal with than it was when they were children. Because when you're children, you just in this society, you just kind of have to give in, to that a little bit, I think.
Did they ever have any? I guess issues or problems when they were growing up, saying that they went to school and all the other kids are now, yelling at them, complaining at them, saying you're going to hell if you don't believe, or was it never really brought up?
Yes, they didn't have that much of a problem, but they did have some problem. They had to face it sometime, and we had prepared them for it. Okay. The biggest problem they would have is when they would go out and visit, spend the night with other kids.
Okay.
And especially if it's over a weekend or something, and the parents there automatically assumed they had the right to take our children to church.
Yeah.
Even parents that knew that we were not church people.
Okay.
That was an automatic for them. They were doing us a big favor by, force-feeding religion to our children. And even one of our relatives in Dallas, when our children went to visit with them, over a weekend.
Okay.
And they made a point of taking them to church and then asking them and quizzing them about, why they didn't go to church and they should try to get mom and daddy to go and this sort of thing. Like we were real bad people.
Yeah, yeah. Did they want to go to church at any time? As in, when they got a little bit older, did they want to know? Well, everybody else is religious.
No, we always told them that if they wanted to go, they could go. We told them that we wanted them to make up their own mind and to educate themselves. We did at one time, I guess, sort of a substitute, but found out we went to one of the churches here in Austin. That's what's the name of the?
Yeah, the Unitarian. I don't know if that's what you're thinking about.
Yeah, the Unitarian Church.
Okay, yeah, Unitarian Universalist.
Now, that was a very good thing because we took them to the Unitarian Church, and it happened at that time at the Unitarian Fellowship, it was.
Okay.
That they were teaching a class to the younger children all about different kinds of religion, the Jewish religion and all different religions each Sunday. So this guy that took this on was a professor. And so I wanted to make sure that he was teaching them what I wanted to teach. So I went in and sat in the class for several sessions and learned a lot myself,
Okay.
And so that's the education my daughters got about religion, was they didn't just learn and they weren't just brainwashed on one religion. They learned about all different religions so they could know how to relate to people,
Exactly.
So that was their basis for religion. And now that they're on their own, like I say, they're 25 and 29 now, they have no desire to go to church. And they're doing just fine.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Love your show.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for calling.
Bye.
I think that religious education is a very good thing. I had one in college. In high school. In high school, we had a program called Humanities. It was some kind of elective, but the first half of the class was just inviting in speakers from every different religion, doing a different speaker every day, and then talking about what their religion was, asking questions, and then we wrote a report on it or whatever. We learned about a large array of religions, and it was very, very good. I think it's good to be well-rounded. I went to religious school growing up, but I was also raised as an atheist.
Okay.
I don't remember ever believing in Santa Claus. Okay. I remember wanting to celebrate Christmas just because all my friends did, but I didn't ever believe there was a Santa Claus.
Okay.
And honestly, I know a whole lot more atheists who have read the Bible cover to cover than Christians.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Most of the people in the group actually have read it at least once. And yeah, that's kind of an interesting factor. The co-host to the show a while back, before I came on, was David Clark, and he actually went to a Bible school. He was studying to be a priest, and it was by going to that school and reading so much of the Bible and asking so many questions, being involved in it all the time. That's why he became atheist. So apparently, Bible schools and seminaries are really they're churning out a lot of atheists. Again, he related a lot of stories.
But not only that, but to a certain extent, I think that all religions have something good to offer. All religions want to teach something about morality, want to teach something about humanity, and all religions have something good to offer. If you study one religion, you kind of get sucked into being brainwashed. That's like the only way to go. But if you study all religions, you can take something good away from each of them without having to subscribe to one particular one. And maybe that's why people become atheists. I don't know, is because, So
we can have religious parties every day of the week.
Yay!
We take the best from them all. So. All right, quick note also, we are live today. It is March 14th. We have reruns every Tuesday on Channel 10, 4:30 to 6 o'clock also. But again, on Tuesdays we are not live. It's just a taped show, so if you're watching this on Tuesday, don't call in. Also, we will go to, let's see. John, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, man?
What you got for us?
Something I wanted to say about what you were talking about earlier with the solstice. The winter solstice actually used to be on the 21st. It moves one day every 500 years. So when they made the 25th, it used to be on the 25th. When they made the 25th Christmas, it was the solstice.
Really?
And now the solstice has moved 4 days back. but the Christians haven't changed their holiday.
Right.
They're kind of behind.
They're not keeping up with the times.
Yeah, and I've heard that the reason they put it, I mean, if you read the Bible, Jesus was born in the spring, and December 25th has never been the spring. The reason they changed it to be December 25th...
Well, it was a long time ago, apparently.
You think? The reason they changed it to December 25th was because they wanted to recruit more pagans. Most Christian holidays, most of the things you practice on the holidays are things taken from other religions, you know, so that they can recruit. See, you want to join our religion because we're just like you.
Well,
we celebrate everything you celebrate.
There had been at least 10, maybe 12 world saviors that had all been born on that day in that general area of the world. It's just over and over again. So, well, let's use that day. That seems the good day to use.
Yeah.
The solstice would be 9 months from what?
But the other one, Easter, the celebration you were talking about is called Ostara. And it was the name of an Irish goddess whose patron animal was a bunny rabbit. She went around the first spring festival of the year delivering eggs to all the children.
I've always wondered how they get the whole Cadbury egg concept. Because the idea of bunny rabbits laying eggs has always been rather disturbing to me.
The holes in the ground where the crosses were. Those are bunny holes. That's what that was.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really
how they neatly fit that in there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember the exact name. I thought it was Esther for some reason, but okay, yeah, I have heard that before. Yeah, that's good.
And I was going to tell you, my girlfriend has a funny story. She was in rehab, and they tried to do the 12-step program on her, so you have to pick your higher power.
Yeah.
And she basically was refusing to say, you know, God or Jesus or whatever. And so finally they told her, you have to pick a higher power. So she turned her head and looked at the door and said, the doorknob. The doorknob is my higher power. That's what gets me out of this room.
That's interesting. That's a good way to think about it, actually.
That. I mean, if you need drug rehabilitation and you don't believe in God, then what? You're hopeless?
I think they have a group out there, I want to say Secular Sobriety, that does the same thing, but it's obviously not religious. I haven't really looked into it that much. I know we did a couple shows on this once or twice, or had calls on it a long time ago. I think Secular Sobriety is a group that does a lot of that type of thing without the religious connotation. So.
That's pretty cool. Right on. Well, man, I want to tell you, man, I know an atheist guy who's married to a pagan woman.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people who are atheists and a lot of people that are pagan, and I think we have a lot in common. And it's weird, but we just, you know, we always have at least, you know, a couple basic things that are very important, like we want to think for ourselves and take care of ourselves and keep religion and government out of our business. And that, I mean, I think that unites us in a lot of ways, no matter what we believe in, you know, when it comes right down to it.
Okay. Yeah, I know one of my friends is actually, he considers himself a Wiccan. And like I said, we have had a lot of discussions, and not so much debates that get me and him, but just, about religion in general. And he's a really well thought out guy. I think in college he studied, I want to say, philosophy and math. Kind of divergent there, but like I say, he's a really interesting guy. So yeah, it's a lot of fun whenever I have a good debate and discussion with him. Like I say, knowing that he's a Wiccan, it's kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, we tend to read a lot of books. Every pagan's house I know looks like a library.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, did you have anything else for us?
No, man, that'll about do it.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks a lot for calling. Bye.
I think that Wiccan is one of the more, I don't know, beautiful of the religions.
Yeah.
It's one of the more, I mean, they don't worship God, they don't worship the devil, they worship nature.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of that can be useful to a certain extent. Again, it was pagan beliefs that originally made up a lot of the calendar to, again, know when the farming season is going to start just by watching the seasons and such, and knowing the dates that such and such things happen. It's an interesting thing. And like I say, we have the solstice parties, mostly because it happens around the same time that all the religious people are having parties, and so we get envious. And so we have, you know, solstice parties and stuff like that. It's just a good excuse. And
anything is a good excuse for a party.
Exactly. And it's nice to just kind of take a step back and realize exactly what's going on in the grand scheme of things at this time. It's just, like I say, I'm a little bit into astronomy. I'll take a telescope out every now and then and, look at what's out there. And it's just kind of interesting to take a step back and see exactly what's going on at this time in, at this time in the year. So, all right, we will go on to Michelle. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Pretty well.
Just first thing, I just wanted to invite all the atheists that have called next solstice time, keep us in mind. If they want to have a place to party.
Exactly. We got it.
We got it. Just look us up. And just the second thing was about the Easter and the bunnies and the eggs. Of course, it's a fertility symbol. Rabbits are known for their procreation ability.
Yeah.
So it's considered it's a fertility symbol, and the same with the eggs.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're just having our little children celebrate fertility rights.
Yeah, and some of the other fertility rights I've seen have been, not quite children rated. So.
No. Well, I was just going to talk about the atheist mom stuff.
Okay.
Good. And I have two kids. I have a 15-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter, and I've basically the same as the caller who had children before. Is I've always told them that they could, if they wanted to go, I would take them.
Okay.
But by the time that they even thought they might want to go, it was like when they had their friends talk about the religions, they would just go, "Well, that doesn't make any sense." The critical thinking skills are already there.
Yeah. They would just be a troublemaker.
And they've had, I think in elementary school, it was more of a problem because, like the guy said, with sleepovers or soccer teams, or like on her soccer team, the friend's mother wanted to take them all to see Jesus Christ Superstar. And I said, well, that's fine, but I'm not sure she knows who that is.
Oh. Wow.
So she was taken aback by that. But yeah, and the thing was, if she spends the night, will they want to take her to church? And
were you also forward with them again about like Santa Claus and all that kind of stuff?
No, I let them have the full joy of childhood.
Okay.
And pretend and mystical stuff. I mean, to me, that was just more part of being a child than anything, and having that sense of awe and wonder. And they don't seem to have been damaged too much. I lied to my children.
Terrible mother.
I know. But they both,
lying to your children like that, my goodness.
I know, I'm so bad. I think you do feel, even if you do that, you do start to feel kind of guilty when the time comes around when they start asking you.
Okay.
Because the kids at school are all saying he doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And then they come, is that true? Have you been lying to me all these years?
Yeah. Okay.
But I think once they get to high school and they find their niche, it becomes less of an issue because they don't tend to hang around with...
you start forming your own little cliques.
Yeah, and if they don't necessarily hang around with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes or anything like that, then they don't fall into that crowd. But I think it is really hard, especially in the elementary school years.
Okay.
And
all right.
Anything else that you guys have any questions about?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for calling.
Sure.
Bye.
Yeah. I mean, my sister-in-law, Jenny, has two kids. One's 14 and one's 11.
Okay.
And they're fun kids. It's fun to listen to these little kids just bashing religious people.
And I know once or twice they have chimed in on the radio show. The internet audio show that we have, it's hosted at Glasser Studios, and basically the kids every now and then will chime in and throw in their 2 cents.
But they're also I mean, maybe it's unique to just those two kids and not to all kids that are raised as atheists, but they're also very strong personalities.
Okay.
So if somebody tries to diss them about being an atheist, they can stand up for themselves.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So. All right. We will go on to Russell. How you doing?
Hi, it's me.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you doing? Earlier on, you were talking about how a lot of atheists also happen to be liberal.
Yeah.
And Actually, I had a different comment, but I decided to read this to you just because the subject came up. I'm reading from Bertrand Russell in something called "Freedom and the Colleges," and he says, and I mean no offense to you, Ashley, because I know you're a libertarian.
Watch it.
But there's this great line here about by Bertrand Russell, who is, of course, a very staunch atheist and a liberal. And he says, the fundamental difference between the liberal and the illiberal outlook is that the former regards all questions as open to discussion and all opinions as open to a greater or less measure of doubt, while the latter holds in advance that certain opinions are absolutely unquestionable and that no argument against them must be allowed to be heard.
Okay.
At its best, I think that's what liberalism is supposed to be, and that's very much in harmony with what a lot of atheists feel.
Yeah.
Another thing that what I was originally calling about, and this can be a little stream of consciousness, sort of, but first of all, we had the radio show yesterday.
Yes.
And you can listen to it now. It's online at atheist-community.org/radio.hcm.
Okay.
And we were talking a lot about the Passion because, we didn't get our chance to do the Passion on the radio show.
Yeah.
And
we had a nice long talk about it.
Jeff brought in this article by Steve Martin, who wrote this very funny satirical piece that was pretending to be studio notes, and it said, "Dear Mel, love the Jesus character," and then suggesting ways they could punch up the script and things.
Does he have to die in the end? You can't kill off the hero.
Yeah, I mean, it was what you would expect. Yeah, it was something like that. It was what you'd expect of Mel Gibson. Of Steve Martin. It was kind of wacky. He suggested they rename it Lethal Passion. Well, Jeff didn't leave this article with me, so I went hunting for it on the internet. And in the process of looking for it, I found a whole lot of editorials criticizing Steve Martin in this completely shocked way that he would dare write anything bad about the Passion or say something like "love the scourging bit" or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Is Steve Martin considered religious? I
don't know what Steve Martin is. Maybe the next time
why don't you ask him next time he calls?
But one of my favorite comments was by one of Steve Martin's attackers was, "Boy, say goodbye to your money, Steve Martin, because we're going to boycott you. Remember what happened to the Dixie Chicks?" Now,
yeah.
I do remember what happened to the Dixie Chicks. They made fun of George Bush, and they got roundly attacked by the right wing. And the right wing to this day like to tout how they destroyed the Dixie Chicks sales or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to their website and looked them up, and it's filled with articles like, Dixie Chicks in November had to release their new album early because there was overwhelming demand for it. They swept some awards ceremony or other.
Yeah.
And their overall sales rank on Amazon was something like 50, which is not out of all music that Amazon sells, but out of every single product that Amazon sells.
Wow.
And that's, a fairly old album.
Yeah, so it didn't hurt them that much.
Yeah.
Publicity helps.
And to bring this back to what I was originally talking about, this, this is typical of what Bertrand Russell was talking about, which is when you criticize part of the conservative establishment, their immediate reaction tends to be not to say you're wrong and here's why, which is what we like to do on the show, right? But they say, "How dare you say that?"
Yeah.
How dare you say anything is wrong with our beloved God or president or whatever?
Yeah, it's an emotional type argument.
Right.
So.
Well, it's not just that it's emotional, but it's, again, like Bertrand Russell was saying, some things are just not open to question.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything else for us?
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for calling. Yeah, and to go with another side quote, I don't know exactly who said this, and again, we're not going to turn this into a political show by any stretch of the imagination, but the quote I heard in college was, if you're young and conservative, you have no heart. If you're old and liberal, you have no brain. So, for what it's worth, that's to throw out the other side of the field. Okay, we have got Billy. How you doing? You there?
Hello?
Yes, Billy. Yes, you're on. Whoever just said hello, you're on.
No, okay, this is Frank. I called in, it rang, and I'm immediately on and hearing you guys.
I'm sorry?
That's Steve Martin is an existentialist.
That's strange. Okay.
He is.
Okay,
Okay,
existentialist. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, thanks.
It's a philosophy now, though, not a religion.
Yeah, existentialism, I'm not too sure on that. I have heard of it, but like I said, I haven't really read up on it at all. So, all right. While we're waiting for calls to rack up, let's see.
Give me the number.
Yes, phone number 477-2288. We've got another 25 minutes on the show today. So like I say, if you want to give us a call and ask us some questions, we'd love to have you call in. One quick book that I will go over here, and actually touched on this one a couple weeks back, and unfortunately I don't have the dust cover, so showing the cover is not much, just red. But this is called The Handbook of Denominations in the United States. It's an interesting book in that I had been looking for something for a couple of months. Because every now and then we have people in the group who said that they were raised Methodists or Lutherans or Baptist or Catholic or whatever. And while they're all different, denomination of Christianity, and we all know what Christianity believes, what is the difference in those denominations? And also just, about Jewish and the Baha'i and just all the other religions also out there, also Islam. This is a good book that goes into a lot of them. Not only is it just, the 30,000-foot view of Catholicism, for instance, but here, Baptist churches, you've got the Alliance of Baptist Churches, which is one. The American Baptist Association, which is another one. And it goes on and on and on about different associations within different churches. It's an interesting book. Like I say, it just goes over what the different beliefs in them are and how they're different from all the other religions. And like I say, it is an interesting book, very much textbook style. But again, Handbook of Denominations in the United States. Like I say, if you're interested in something like that, good thing to pick up. I actually got it in one of the Christian bookstores. And I talked about that a couple weeks ago, too, and had some pictures of T-shirts and such in there, which was great fun. Okay, we will go on to Dan. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
What you got for us?
I was just wondering, as a community, an atheist community, and as a group, what content in let's say, Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ film, do you find valuable? Surely even from your perspective, it's not utterly irredeemable, because I think you have the capacity to view it in the intellectual context that a Christian would view it in, and recognize the value they see. So as an atheist community and group, what content do you find to be valuable and redeemable?
The most valuable thing I saw in it was fodder for the TV show. We had a nice long talk about it on the TV show. My main view of the movie, outside of my initial reaction of just horrifyingly violent and gory, just in every term, it's shocking how violent it is. I kind of looked at it
more violent than say Private Ryan.
It's got a different feel to it. They give it more of a realistic feel, and Mel Gibson really liked those loving close-ups of, the scourge ripping into his flesh and tearing it open. All the loving close-ups of every drop of blood.
So it was never intended as a children's story, though.
Not intended as a children's story. I'll give you that. Rated R, so that kids can go see it. Yes, and that I don't agree with. I definitely would have said NC-17. I mean, if just the slightest bit of sex on any movie nowadays and it gets NC-17 and you have something this violent, this basically just goes to show that no movie will ever get an NC-17 rating for violence. It just can't happen. You can't get all that much more violent than this. But outside of that, looking at it as an actual movie, a narrative, there's nothing to it. Within the first 3 minutes of the movie, you got Jesus saying, I don't know if I'm really up for this. And then he goes, okay, I guess I am. They pick him up, they beat him for 2 solid hours. And then in the last 2 minutes, he gets up and walks off.
Wouldn't the Christians defend this as saying it's probably a pretty accurate representation of what happened to the man?
It's possible that would be their take on it. But again, as a narrative story, it doesn't explain who Jesus is. It doesn't explain why, they picked him up and they beat the hell out of him for 2 hours. It doesn't explain, there's very little explanation in the movie as to why any of this is happening. If you don't know the story of Jesus, you ain't going to figure it out from this movie. So again, as a narrative, it's not really there.
Assumed that anybody who walks in to see the film is
of course
thoroughly familiar with the tale.
Of course, it's kind of the audience it's geared towards.
Yeah.
And again, it's still, and again, it's a movie. It's an emotional argument. It's saying he loved you, and this really frickin' hurt. And again, that's the moral of the movie. It really frickin' hurt.
Yeah. One last question, or that was more of a comment than a question, I guess, although you did provide an answer to my kind of quasi-question.
Okay.
But as the atheist community and group, is it the onus of your group to help people find ways to determine absolute moral ground for certain beliefs that aren't embedded in religion? In other words...
As in, are we trying to find a different moral code?
No, not a different moral code.
Okay.
But outside the code of religiosity and the code that people find inherent in a belief that the universe was created by a loving God,
okay,
it's difficult to find a rationale that provides certitude for not killing, not stealing, not committing adultery. And I'm not. You can shake your head, but I'm not talking about.
Okay.
I'm not talking about ethics. I'm talking about moral certitude.
Certitude.
And I think if anybody ponders a question long enough, they find themselves eventually at an impasse where they have to make a leap and say, this is either good or bad, but why?
Okay, and I'm assuming you mean that there are a set of absolutes out there. Maybe just a handful, but killing is wrong.
Yeah, maybe
period.
just a handful. But
okay.
But
okay.
Those should be, if they are not, moral certitudes. And if they are indeed, how do you justify saying they're certain?
Yeah. Everything is situational ethics. There are... A lot of times religious people don't like the idea of...
I don't think incest is situational ethics. I don't think child rape is situational ethics.
Yeah, and there are some things where I can't think of any justification where such and such an action or idea or something like that would be justifiable.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bible does. And again, that's something where, we try and come up and say there are logical reasons why killing is bad, why murder is bad, why child rape is bad, all these kind of things. And there's a better reason out there of why these things are bad than just because God says so. There are lots of other reasons out there, and those are what we're trying to get across. Is again by saying that murder is bad. There are reasons for that. As far as, let me see, I kind of dropped the last part of your question there, I guess.
I was just wondering how, as atheists, you can provide a framework of instruction to teach people to love one another and love themselves.
Okay. It kind of boils down to actions having consequences. We realize that we have to live together. We're a social species. That's how, we evolved essentially through history. We live with other people. And in order to get along, basically, the world is a better place to live in if everyone gets along. If I don't take your stuff and you don't take my stuff against our consent, then we're just happier together.
But isn't the person who takes your stuff perhaps pretty damn happy he got your stuff?
Until me and the rest of my friends go over and thump him with a big stick to get it back, yeah.
Unless you simply probably will never have the wherewithal to do so.
How so? Most things come back
if I'm the 300-pound U.S. against the 10-pound Iraq, you know, I can go in, I can take your stuff, take your economy, take your infrastructure, take your oil, and you really can't do anything to harm me.
Yeah, and look what the rest of the world, and a lot of the rest of the world is also saying that no, this isn't right. This is a bad thing to do. And now again, we're not going to turn this into a political show, but again,
that was just probably a poor analogy.
Yeah, well, no, I mean I see where you're going with it though. But yeah, essentially just the idea that, again, actions have consequences. We do things for a reason, and that reason usually is that we have to get along and live together. Because if we don't, you know, someone's going to step on someone else's toes, and it's going to get bad.
So it's kind of like H.L. Mencken said, conscience is that inner voice that tells you someone may be watching.
To a certain extent, perhaps.
Kind of cynical.
But then again, I mean, I would prefer to be in the impression that I should be good and I should be just because I will be judged by my friends and my peers and society, than just say that, well, when I die, you know, God's gonna, you know, come down on me or something like that. I'm not a good person because I think I'm gonna burn in hell or if I'm not or something like that. I'm a good person because if I'm not, she is gonna get really ticked off at me. All of my friends are going to get really ticked off at me, and I don't end up with any friends. That kind of sucks. I
was a preschool teacher for like 3 months, and I taught 2-year-olds, and you see kids learning to get along with each other. I mean, the 2-year-old years are really when they test their limits of how you get along with anybody else, how you step on anybody else's toes and what that does, you know. It's when you really experiment with biting other kids, pushing them over, stepping on their toes, hitting them, and eventually you learn that if you do that, they're not going to want to play with you anymore. You know, I mean, it's a dramatic simplification. Excuse me, simplification. Just kidding. But, I mean, you learn it throughout your life. You learn just how to get along with other people. I mean, personally, if anybody was to kill my mother, I would be very, very, very sad. So I can understand how if I was to kill somebody else's mother, I would be making somebody else very, very sad, and I can't live with that. I mean, I would hope that to most people it would be that simple. It'd be, well, I can understand why they wouldn't want that to happen to them. I mean, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, it says that in the Bible, but people need to be told that they're going to hell in order to not do that. I don't know. I mean, for me, it's very easy. I see, well, if I am nice to people, they'll be nice to me back. If I'm mean to people, they'll hate me and they'll be mean to me back. An eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind.
Yeah, it just seems to be kind of a, as you pointed out, I don't want this to happen to me, I don't want this to happen to somebody else, so therefore I won't do it. That's much more Old Testament in its codified rewards and punishments way of thinking than the New Testament is, which actually kind of states that the laws are overturned because the message is these goodnesses are inherent in us, that good is simply good, and it doesn't have to do with, is someone going to hurt me back, is someone going to kill my mother? No, these things are simply wrong.
But that's a vast oversimplification. There are reasons that things are good and bad. And it's nice to actually, you know, think about these things and look at them and discover why things are good and bad, rather than just blindly accepting it and saying, well, because God says so, then it must be. Because all of a sudden, if for some reason you take God out of the equation, then your moral basis,
killers and murderers on our hands.
Your moral basis has just fallen apart because there's nothing that you base it on.
Yeah.
If I come up with the idea that murder is bad because, you know, it makes people sad and I don't want to be sad either, you know, something simple like that, then there's not too much that can take that away.
Yeah, I personally don't think God said those things.
Okay.
You know, what said those things was the essence of the beauty of the human spirit as exemplified in the fine messages of the New Testament. And God is in the human spirit. And it's not this, you know, as Blake said, the big Novo Daddy in the sky that one finds in the Old Testament. It's man as God, God as man.
So you're just saying that,
New Testament.
So essentially it, correct me if I'm wrong here, which I may very well be, it sounds like what you're saying is morality is a sense of God. We have these rules that we live by,
yeah, but God
and those are God.
God is a catchword.
Okay,
You know?
so you're not saying God is some self-conscious entity up in space somewhere dictating this good, this bad.
No, certainly not. And I think that's the kind of superstition and frivolity y'all are attempting to overthrow, and I applaud you for that.
Okay.
But I think as long as we're attacking this bearded caricature, we're missing the community that all of us are in, instead of creating two separate communities, the religious and the atheist.
And by saying that good is kind of, you know, built into, you know, being a human.
But it's an intellectual understanding that has to move through one's heart, if you will, to use vague language.
Well, again, we can use...
I don't think so, though, because, I mean, if you look at it, it's that being good is an intellectual thing.
No, I didn't stop there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's we have intellectual reasons as to why being good is good and why being bad is bad.
Right.
It's kind of built into who we are as people, though, because we've had to live by these rules for the last, you know, 7 million years. That, you know, humans have been a separate species, and, you know, we've been living with each other. We've had to make up these rules and figure them out, to where, you know, when I'm standing in a store, I don't think, I shouldn't take these things that aren't mine because that would be bad. I don't have to rationalize it because, you know, the past 7 million years kind of put in my head that that's not the first thing that I think of. You know, it's just kind of built in that, you know, we have to get together and we have to learn to live together. So.
And as humans, we can reflect and communicate upon the uniqueness of our very existence.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for calling. All right. Any other comment on that?
No, just, I mean, I've said this before and I will continue to say it again, that the people that ask me, if you don't believe in God, then what stops you from going out and raping and killing and pillaging? My way of answering that question is to throw it back at them. If you believe in God and suddenly you found out that there was no God, would you go out and rape and kill and pillage and kill?
Yeah.
Because if that's true, then that is a very scary thought.
Exactly.
That there are so many people out there that they have no better reason not to do it than that they're afraid they're going to get something. I mean, that they're afraid that God is going to smite them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that I could kill someone if I tried, if I wanted to, if it were a life and death situation. I mean, I can't even wear leather.
And I think a lot of that point, though, we've had 1 or 2 callers on the show in the past who said, you know, we've basically argued them into the corner and said, assuming, you know, you found out tomorrow that there's no God, would you kill? And they turn around and say, well, yeah. Basically, again, what you're doing is you're backing them into a corner where, at that point, the only thing that they can say is either back up everything that they've been saying for the last 20 minutes and saying, yes, I would kill, or turn around and just, you know, dismiss everything that they've been arguing for the last 20 minutes and say, well, no, I guess I wouldn't, actually. And obviously, you know, once you back them in the corner, they can't do that. So, again, there are reasons that we don't kill, and
take rape, for example. I mean, if what you want is to be sexually active and you go out and rape a woman, she's sure as heck never going to want to sleep with you again.
Yeah.
Whereas
limiting future possibilities.
Whereas if you're nice to her and you woo her, you might be able to you know, have her every night without resistance, you know? It's reward and punishment thing, you know? You could you could do it the hard way or you could do it the easy way.
Again, if you do those kind of things, you're considered a bad person. No one wants to be with you. And again, in our history, in our little tiny village, people are going to get together and beat the hell out of you and kick you out of town.
Exile you.
That's bad. So yeah, learn not to do these things. All right, we have got Robbie. What you got for us?
Oh, I want to tell you how good.
Hey.
I want to tell you how good Christians are sometimes. I had someone asked me what I was, this man and lady, and I said I was an atheist, and she got big-eyed, and she said, "You can't be an atheist," and I said, "Why not?" And she goes on about, and I said, "Well, I'm an atheist," and she gave me the middle finger, and I told her she was such a good Christian. I was #1 in her book, and she went on, and I said, "Well, your God's evil," and I explained to her about the guy who killed the little girl.
Yeah.
I said he came down on the side of evil. He didn't come down on the side of the little girl. The little girl had a choice, but God didn't help her, help the guy that was evil.
Yeah.
And she said, and this is the exact word she said, well, the little girl was in the wrong place at that time.
Wow.
And I said, you talk about evil. You're sitting there being the most evil person I've ever heard. So the little girl's choice of being on this earth was hers, but she was in the wrong place. She chose to be the wrong place, but the evil guy could kill this little girl.
Yeah, she chose to be there at the wrong time, and so she deserved to die.
And
wow.
I was really shocked,
Yeah.
you know. And I said, I really don't want to discuss anything with you any longer because you're such an evil.
Yeah.
And I said a few other words.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the guy that said, you know, I told you, I think you remember this, there's no atheist in a foxhole.
Yeah.
And I said, this one was all the people that was praying not alive anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wasn't paying attention to what they was doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to get that little story off.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks for calling.
I'd like to back that up by saying that the point of our show is not to prove that all Christians are evil.
Of course not. Of course not. Most of them aren't.
Most of them aren't.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you were saying earlier, every religion has something good to teach.
It also has something bad that you can take away from it.
Exactly.
If you want to do something bad, you can find somewhere in the Bible to back up what you're doing.
Exactly.
You can find something in the Bible that says I should go fly a plane into the World Trade Center, or you know, it's okay for me to murder and rape and whatever. You can find that in the Bible if you look for it. God tells you to do it. That's what Hitler said.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, you can take something good or something bad depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, most people take the good side of it away. So, whew. All right. I think we got time for one more quick call. We will see. We will go with Thomas. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay. What you got for us?
Well, I'd like to make a statement and ask a question.
Okay.
First of all, I see you sitting there in your belief, and I see the Christians and other religious people who believe.
Okay.
And it's all based on our intellect and our reasoning, and we think that that's the limit, and that we can actually know something by this. It's like we're above a cat or a dog, and to think, I'm not saying there is or is not a God, but to think that we're the highest thing conceivable when there's probably states of consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
It's so far above our right and wrong, our beliefs, our anything we could even think of.
Yeah, I mean, there may very well be some species out there that's, you know, intellectually superior to us or something like that.
Well, I'm not even talking about a species. I'm talking about levels of consciousness, just like a dog or cat is below us. And for us to think that our reasoning and our intellect is the end of it is it's not the highest state of consciousness. There's got to be
Everyone
I
likes...
mean, we're still living under the Newtonian view of the universe.
Yeah.
Everyone
Everyone
likes
likes
to... If you know anything
to...
at all about quantum physics, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, it's totally beautiful. These guys are spiritual.
Okay. We're going to have to let you go. We got 1 minute left on the show here, but thanks for calling in. But yeah, like I say, everybody likes to think that they're special in some way, and we're above everyone else. We're the right people, and they're the wrong ones, and so we're above them. Everyone likes to have that idea. It's just trying to temper that with reason and tolerance and such to balance it out. Anyway, we have got 30 seconds left. We thank everyone for watching. Thank you, Karen, for being my co-host this week.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I'll be on again in another month.
In about another month. Like I said, we're rotating out. Next week, we're going to have Jeff D. on, and so that should be a very fun show. Anyway,
Are you saying
thank you
I
for
wasn't
watching.
fun?
You were lots of fun. Thank you. Foot in mouth. Anyway, thanks for watching. Everybody have a good week, and we will see you next week again.